Okay, so it's time to talk about my experience at the Monroe Institute. I've been talking about it in the other videos. I come to this video, and this is that. So I made a couple of notes. This was almost 2 years ago, so this was in October 2023, and I had a wild experience, not at all what you would expect going into the Gateway Voyage. That's what it's called, right? So everyone knows who Robert Monroe is. He's the one who wrote Journeys Out of the Body in the 1970s and kind of started people on the track to knowing about astral projections and stuff like that. And originally he was very curious about astral projections, but it evolved more into his practice of and his research on phasing. And so phasing was like learning to shift between different levels of consciousness by your own will, like to train to be able to do that on command. So yeah, so there are several programs at the Monroe Institute. I went to the campus in Virginia, United States, but there are some all over the world. I chose that one because that's where Monroe lived. It was his home, and so who doesn't want to be there where he was, right? See how it all began. And so the Gateway Voyage Residential Retreat is a retreat where you go and test out hemisync, learn about the focus levels, like the focus levels of consciousness that you train, that Monroe identified. And then you have group discussions, you have informal lectures, and yeah, you just practice these techniques all day. So most days you'd have like 4 to 6 exercises to practice the techniques, and they last between 30 minutes and 60 minutes. So you can imagine these are really long days. You have at least maybe 4 hours a day of practice. You have lectures, you have discussion groups, and then you have like a little break during the day. And even in the evening, you have lectures on various subjects. So all this is so that we can learn that we are more than our physical body. Okay, so the focus levels that are taught there, and please stay tuned, because the story that I experienced has nothing to do, or all to do. It's so weird. I really want to talk about it at the first, but then if I do, you won't stay to figure out everything else and how it worked and why it happened that way. So C1 consciousness is the consciousness I find myself in right now. The normal daily consciousness for most people is C1 consciousness. And then you learn about focus 10. Focus 10 is mind awake, body asleep. Okay, so you learn how to manage that state, that altered state of consciousness. And then you learn about focus 12. Focus 12 is expanded state of awareness. So that's the state where you're going to perceive information from more than just your basic 5 senses. So you could get technically like psychic communications, or, feelings that wouldn't be there otherwise, visuals that wouldn't be there otherwise, that you're not feeling through your 5 senses. Then there's focus 15. Focus 15 is the state of no time. State of no time is really like a calm and peaceful space. It's also, we didn't practice this technically, but it's also the space where you could travel like between lives because there's no time. And so you can really find out about your true essence in that state. And then there's focus 21 that we learned about. Focus 21 is called the bridge state. And that's where you can astral project. And basically it's the bridge between the physical and the non-physical realms. So those are the main focus levels you learn about during the Gateway Residential Retreat. I think a lot of us expected that we're going there to learn about astral projection because that's how we see or know Robert Monroe to, have started his institute. And so I personally was a bit disappointed because I was going there, as you know, If you've seen my other videos, I was going through a dark night of the soul. I had lost my dog less than 2 months prior. I was grieving really hard, and I really wanted to be able to communicate and meet up with my dog in the astral realm. And because I was so intensely grieving, it was really hard for me. Hold on, my cat's coming. It was really hard for me to astral project. And so I thought if I go immerse myself at the Monroe Institute, it's going to be easier for me. So when we were there, we didn't touch on a lot of astral projection techniques. Yes, we've shifted through the states of awareness, and I did get some fun experiences out of that, but that's not what I was going for. Sorry. Okay, hold on. Let me get a sip. Yeah. So, in case I forget things, some of the lectures or activities and experiences we had there as a group, we were about 20 people. We had some energy healing and some emotional cleansing exercises, which is really nice. These were like some of the preparatory work, but some of them were like exercises just for learning to, use those types of energies. We had spiritual protection exercises, problem solving exercises. That was really nice. Not sure I remember which focus that was in, but I'll talk about that a little later. We did some remote viewing. Oh yeah, remote viewing. That was so awesome. I was really happy with that part of the experience because I think it was on day 3. We were going in for the evening discussion group or lecture, and we're all sitting down there, and in comes Joe McMoneagle from Stargate, the CIA psychic spy. Okay, so him, Joe McMoneagle, he comes in and we're like, oh my God. And so we did some remote viewing exercises with him, and he talked about his story and all. It was so awesome. It was really, really fun. And so he helps well, he's there regularly. I don't know if he works there, but he lives close to the Monroe Institute, so he's there regularly. We didn't know this, so it was nice. So if you haven't been and you want to do something fun, you might meet some very interesting people there. And then we did some manifestation work. We had a silent morning, almost like when you go to a silent retreat, but it was just for a morning. So everyone was not talking, being silent. And we had previews of other programs. Okay, so like the remote viewing program or the lifelines is really interesting. We saw about that. Okay, and so if we're gonna look at just what my experiences were during the exercises where we were in, because we had pods, we'd go lay down in our pods. Everything was dark in there. We had earphones on. And so you'd expect that that's when you're listening to the Monroe tapes. Everyone's heard of them. Some of you have downloaded them online or have bought them. And so you probably know what I'm talking about, but it looks like that. You're listening to the Monroe tapes laying down. There's special ones for special states. And so you'd expect my experiences would have been, while we were doing that, 4 to 5 to 6 hours a day. But that was nice. I did have a couple of experiences, but none of them were leaving my body. I think I came close for sure, but I didn't leave my body. And yeah, I had a lot of visuals. So, I saw myself, but not in astral projection state, but almost like in a remote viewing fashion from above the mountains, because this is in the Blue Ridge Mountains in Virginia. So I saw myself as if I was floating up in the sky, looking down at the mountains. I also saw myself in a tunnel, those tunnels leading up to heaven. So it was like a cloudy kind of tunnel with some light at the end. I saw myself in that. I saw some visions of a ring of fire, white fire. It looked a lot like a solar eclipse, but the fire was more intense. So it wasn't a solar eclipse, but it was white fire like that in a ring of fire. And I found out later why I saw that. And then, yeah, we did some remote viewing exercises, like I said. So, oh yeah, we did have, when we did the problem solving, I think this was in Focus 12. It's probably Focus 12. And we would ask questions, kind of like asking questions to the universe and getting guidance back or answers back to our questions. And it was kind of like telepathic or psychic or something, the response you'd get back either through images or symbols or even like hearing things. So yeah, that was nice because I got a lot of answers to my questions that way through the exercise we did at the Monroe. But now I'm ready to tell you about my special experience. Okay, I was not expecting this. It's crazy, okay? I don't even know why I'm sharing this online. This is the experience I had at the Monroe Institute. We had an exercise. This was okay, so the retreat lasts 6 days and was one of the last ones, so maybe the day before the last day that we were there. The exercise was to practice all these focus levels we had learned in the pod during the week, but to try them during a kind of like walking meditation. So you would walk outside. It was really nice outside. If you guys haven't been, it's the best place to be. Especially we were there in the fall. It was so nice. So we're out in the mountains, well, on the lawn, in the mountains, in the yard. So we were doing the exercises walking. Everyone was walking around. And the goal was to shift your conscious levels while you're walking. And so, you know, the beginning is kind of interesting. I started walking, blah, blah, it's kind of interesting, but not so much. But I was shifting through the levels, level 10, I was C1, level 10, walking, level 12, walking, level 15. And then when I started to shift between level 15 and 21, I was walking and there were like trees all on this side of, you know, the yard. It's big. I say yard, but it's big. And there was trees, and I was walking in that direction. There were trees there, some trees there. And as I was shifting my focus from 15 to 21, something happened, like something so weird happened. It's all, now I look at it and it feels like a psychedelic trip. It feels like LSD or something. I was walking and nature came to life. Not like in a cartoon. Like all of a sudden, I could feel the energies of all the nature around me. And I was walking and feeling this shift happening. And then I could start to hear some form of voices. It was kind of like telepathic. It wasn't in my physical ears. And I started to look at the trees beside me, and they all had like faces. And I've seen faces in trees before. If you look at trees, you see faces all the time. But nah, this was something else. And they were alive. They were communicating with me, and it's like I was meeting people. It was the same thing. Like I was meeting souls, people, the personalities of these trees. They were talking. One of them, that's when I kind of noticed, like one of the first ones I saw that I realized, oh my God, this tree is alive. He looked like how did I qualify him? He looked like some cool old man, you know, like someone who's seen it all, wrinkles and alls and stuff, but he's still like a joyful kind of person. Like he's the one who puts life into his group, you know, like he's the one who's the fun guy. And he was so cool that I peaced, like I'm like, I had to do a peace sign to him to salute him that I'd seen him. And so I saw plenty of like trees like this, and it wasn't just the trees, like the bushes were alive. Probably the grass was alive, but I was focusing on these trees. They were so intriguing to me and so like, oh my God. And so I started to communicate with the trees, and I had, you know, like conversations. I'm going to put my notes here because I don't want to forget anything. Yeah, they had personality, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so things like I learned throughout these conversations, there were some, okay, like one of the first questions I asked was like, okay, like, because this is a whole community of personalities and spirits and souls and whatever in this natural world, in this, and so I asked, like, if you were to identify someone here who was similar to me, right? And so they showed me, it was kind of like I felt compelled to look in a certain direction. And so I saw like some red leaves, you know, like growing on this like dying tree. And yeah, so they showed me that I was like the leaves on the trees. Not sure if what it meant was like I'm like leaves, or like humans are like leaves, like there are lots of leaves and all the leaves make up a community, right? I don't know if that's what they were saying, but they did tell me that trees are to the plant kingdom as humans are to the animal kingdom. So we're kind of like equivalent to trees, you know? And then they told me about them having something that's equivalent to our World Wide Web. So they communicate through the branches and the leaves above the ground, and then they communicate underground through their roots and whatever other systems are underground. So they all have contact with each other. So a tree in Canada can talk to a tree in Chile just through this web of information between trees. And so that's like their worldwide, their WWW, that's theirs. That's how they communicate. And so and they have a lot of information on the state of our planet. So they talked about all of this with me, blah, blah, blah. We shared, we communicated, that was nice. And they told me that it's possible to communicate with this plant world, the plant kingdom, through Focus 21. So yeah, that was my mind-blowing experience at Monroe. When I talked about it in the group session, they hadn't heard of someone else having had that kind of experience at the Monroe Institute. And some of the people there kind of thought maybe I had that experience because I went to the ayahuasca retreat the month prior. Maybe there was an overlap or something of both experience for me. But yeah, that was my experience. I learned about trees and the plant world are all alive. They are all souls just like us. And they have lives, they have personalities. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And so that's it. I think I covered everything. Yeah, I do remember that I felt a lot of joy in that experience. I thought it was crazy, awesome, that there were whole communities that we didn't know out there. Because it looks like I hadn't paid attention. I do care a lot for nature and for our planet, but I had no idea that on some level of consciousness, they're just like us. So I appreciate them a lot more now. I communicate with them still, and I've planted a lot of trees since then. So yeah, I guess it gave me something new to focus on. So I hope you enjoyed my story about my experience at the Monroe Institute when I went and I did the Gateway Voyage Residential Retreat. So I'll see you in my next video.